Hello.
Hello.
We are adults without children who love Disney. And we have been to the parks numerous times, but we actually just recently went on our very first Disney cruise.
In fact, it was our first cruise ever.
That's right. And we had several people ask, or a handful of people at least, kind of say, why would you cruise Disney without kids? So we're going to talk about that. All right, so we're going to start out by just saying we love Disney. So answer number one, we love Disney.
We love the movies, we love the parks, we love the characters.
Yeah, the theming, I love just the environment and the space. We love being in Disney World, you know, just those kinds of things. So for me, it was a no-brainer that obviously if we're going to go on a cruise, it's going to be with Disney. And that's not to say we wouldn't try other cruise lines, but definitely for our first cruise, it was going to be Disney. So leading up to our cruise, I watched countless hours of Disney cruise vlogs over and over and over again. So not going to say I'm an expert, but I definitely learned a lot about the adult-only spaces, specifically on Disney, and definitely had some expectations. So we're kind of going to talk about our experiences, basically what the adult-only spaces on Disney are and our experiences with them. So for us, we knew booking a Disney cruise that there were lots of kind of adult-only spaces, adult activities, all kinds of things to do on board for just adults.
Which is unique to the cruise versus the parks.
Yes, yeah. So for me, that was kind of nice. I almost genuinely went in believing that I would love cruising more than the parks. I would say it's an apples to oranges comparison. So I love them both equally, but definitely more adult-only spaces on the cruise ship offerings than you really don't have that in the parks. So
there are essentially three kinds of adult-only areas. You have the lounges, which are basically bars that kind of become adult-only at certain times. And then there are the fine dining restaurants, which are Remy and Paolo on the ship that we went on.
Fantasy. Yep. That
are adult only. And then you have the kind of adult only areas on the pool deck, which is Quiet Cove and
that's where Cove Cafe is as well.
13, which is where Satellite Falls is.
Yep. Yeah, so with the lounges, we're kind of going to talk about them in the clumps of like lounges, restaurants, you know, pool decks. So the lounges, one thing to note, they are technically not adult only until after like 9 p.m. So for me, I'm an early bird, so I was in bed before they were night only or adult only. But I will say, being in them during the day, it wasn't really a kid hangout. It definitely, even though it wasn't adult only, it's not like kids weren't permitted to be in there. It was still felt like a pretty much adult only space. The only downside for me about the lounges was kind of, they had weird hours. They weren't open like extended amounts of time during the day, and they were open for things like trivia and beverage seminars and animation classes and all kinds of things. So it was, I guess I kind of anticipated them being sort of a place you could hang out, but they really were kind of a place where things were happening. So that was a little bit unusual to me. There were 5 kind of main lounges in the Europa space. You want to talk about those?
Yeah, so you have the Europa is kind of like the lounge area. They had the Tube.
On the Fantasy.
Yeah, sorry. The Tube, which is kind of inspired by the London Underground. You have La Piazza, which was sort of like Italian theme and kind of had like a carousel vibe. You had O'Gill's Pub, which was an Irish themed pub. You had the Skyline Lounge, which is based around kind of major skylines throughout the world. And
Ooh La La.
Ooh La La, which is a French one, which we actually never even went into.
No, yeah, we never even made it to that one.
Don't know exactly how that one is.
And there is one other lounge that's not part of the Europa area. It's actually between the 2 restaurants, yes. The Meridian Lounge, which was actually our favorite. But what was unusual about the lounges was kind of the hours of being open. So like the Tube was open all day for trivia and various kind of activities or things that were happening, but it didn't actually really like open until like 7 p.m. So like you couldn't go into the Tube and grab a drink until like 7 p.m. That's kind of when that bar opened as a bar. Skyline Lounge and Ooh La La both did not open until 7 p.m. The only times I ever saw those being open kind of during the day was for beverage seminars. Yeah, and those are like an upcharge, so you register for those kind of ahead of time. So that really kind of left O'Gill's and La Piazza as kind of your only sort of lounge options during the day. La Piazza was the most open. I think most mornings opened around like maybe 10 a.m.
Well, the issue with La Piazza is that it's a hallway. Like, you have to walk through it to get from one part of the ship to the other.
Yeah, it is a thoroughfare.
And it kind of made it a little awkward, even when we were doing trivia. And so you have herds of people kind of just walking through.
Yeah, it was kind of a pass-through, which is kind of strange. We did some trivia in O'Gill's, so we got to experience O'Gill's. That was nice. It was a little more quiet and tucked away, but they would also have beverage seminars in there. And because the beverage seminars were, you know, a kind of a pre-ticketed, like paid-for event, you'd get kicked out. You couldn't just like hang out in O'Gill's. So I think for me, I loved the lounges. And of course, I mean, overall, we made great use of the lounges. But I kind of wished that at least one of them had been just sort of like open during the day and not necessarily being used for something else. Just to kind of hang out.
For just like relaxing.
Yeah.
Oh, technically the D lounge is a lounge as well, but
that's technically true.
The D lounge is almost strictly a family event space. It
was more like family event kind of.
They had the karaoke.
I guess did it have a bar in the back?
I don't think they had.
I don't think it did.
I don't think they had a bar.
Okay, yeah. So Meridian Lounge, in my opinion, was kind of probably your better option for like hanging out during the day because they didn't necessarily have trivias and things going on. But Meridian Lounge was weird because it was open from like 10 to 2 and then it didn't open again until 5. And so like a big block of the afternoon, which is kind of when I would want to go and grab a drink, it wasn't open. So I found that like we ended up only making it there like one time because every time I would think about it, it was like 1:45 or 2, and it was like, you know, right in time for it to close. So just know going in, the lounges are amazing. They're so much fun. I love the theming in them. But just know going in that they have a little bit kind of like strange hours. There are definitely activities going on during the day. And so for me, I kind of had an envision like I sort of envisioned myself like parking in a corner, in a nice quiet corner with a book and just sort of relaxing in a lounge. And that wasn't really something I could do. So kind of know that now for next time. So next up would be the restaurants, which are on the Fantasy, Paulo, and Remy. On the Wonder and the Magic, I know they just have Paulo, and the new ships have, I think, like a different variation of Paulo and kind of a different variation of a French restaurant. Those are an upcharge. We actually did not do Paulo or Remy on
we had Paulo originally booked.
We did, yeah.
But being our first cruise, we kind of decided that we
didn't want to miss out on any of the main dining options.
Also, you were kind of worried about...
I was worried about allergies.
Because we had read online, or maybe you watched a video where they were kind of very strict about like not changing their menu. Yeah,
I was afraid, especially with Remy, because that was the one I was really, honestly, super interested in trying. And I had like read something on Facebook that they weren't very accommodating for allergies. So I thought, well, gosh, that's a lot of money to pay if I can't eat half of what they serve. So I thought, let's just go. Let's not do Paulo or Remy this time. That way we get to experience all the main dining restaurants. We get to do all of that. And then while we're there, we can kind of learn about it. And what did we learn?
We did. So we met a couple that had just...
They were actually cast members.
They had just gone to Paulo the night before, maybe, I think. And they talked about how she was celiac.
And they had done Remy the night before. That's what it was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And she has celiac.
She was celiac. And so she was saying that they were very accommodating with her gluten allergy.
Yeah, they made her everything special, and like she didn't miss out on anything. So it was wonderful. I was so glad to hear that. So it could be that there are certain allergies that they can't accommodate, but I was relieved to know that gluten they can accommodate. So now I know in the future that we can try Paulo or Remy, and we definitely will next time. Okay, so that leaves us with kind of the last space, which is the adult-only decks. So there are, on the Fantasy, at least there's 2 of them. Obviously, we can't speak to the other ships. I don't really know. But on the Fantasy, they had Deck 11, which was the Quiet Cove pool area. And then they had up on Deck 13, Satellite Falls. I say quiet because Quiet Cove pool wasn't really very quiet.
Honestly, I feel like it was just as loud as the kids' deck. I mean, obviously, it was a different kind of loud.
Yeah, a different kind of loud. Yeah, but it was
chatter and people talking.
Lots of people.
Kids yelling. But every time that we walked through Quiet Cove,
we were like, this isn't very quiet.
It was very packed, very crowded. There wasn't a lot of times where I saw even room for us to get into the small pool.
Oh no, it was like human soup, which was fine. I mean, we're not big like people, so it wasn't a big deal. But it was definitely. I think that Deck 11 was probably some of the more packed spaces as far as like adult spaces. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
On the ship
when we went into Cove Cafe, which is the adult-only coffee.
The coffee
place,
bar, coffee shop.
All of the seats were taken.
Yeah, it was like standing room only, and it was really packed in there. Now, some of this could have been our cruise. Probably should give that caveat because the weather on our cruise was a little bit chilly, kind of windy. So it could have been, there just wasn't maybe, I mean, there honestly, and actually we'll get to deck 13 in a second, but there could have been a reason everyone was on deck 11 because it was kind of a little bit more pleasant from a weather perspective. But I was shocked at how crowded Cove Cafe was. It was kind of crazy. But a really beautiful space. But it wasn't a space that I wouldn't feel comfortable hanging out and taking up a seat because I would feel like I'm in people's way, because it definitely felt like you needed to make room for the next people who were trying to kind of get in. So it wasn't necessarily a hangout spot. And then deck 13, that was our favorite.
Yeah, so
we loved deck 13.
Satellite Falls, there's kind of, that's the front of the, like the forwardmost deck. You kind of, we stood up there when we watched the
when we got to like sail away, that was really fun.
But it was mostly exposed. There's the small like kind of arch of loungers that are kind of
there's a little bit shielded from the wind,
but everything else was kind of out and open. And because of the weather and the wind and kind of the misty rain, like, there
was a few days you really couldn't even be up there.
Yeah,
it was so windy.
That one day that was really windy, I walked over there and there wasn't a single person out there. They were just like all gone. There were even the two side decks that are like coming from like where the currents, the bar.
Oh yeah.
The top of deck.
One side is like smoking and one side's not.
The decks that walk between there, they have lots of loungers. Those were packed, I would say 80% of the time. Just like
they were like strapped down. You couldn't even use them because
there
of
was
the wind.
Just too much wind and people weren't going to sit up there because it was just kind of cruddy weather. Yeah,
so I think that could have been a reason why deck 11 was so packed every time. But deck 13 we really did love, and so on a future cruise I would love the opportunity to kind of hopefully have like slightly better weather where we can maybe enjoy that space a little bit more, because that, if I was going to be outside, I definitely preferred deck 13 over deck 11 for that very reason, like that it was just a little bit quieter, it was a bigger, more open space, and you didn't have kind of the passing through of people trying to get to the forward, elevators and stairs and all of that. So overall, I think that I had maybe like slightly unrealistic expectations going, or not unrealistic, but maybe like rose-colored glasses kind of expectations going into the cruise and expecting like this, I don't know, luxurious adult only spaces. I don't know what I was expecting, but it was a little bit different. So I definitely had to kind of manage my expectations there and go, well, hey, this is still really amazing. I'm having a great time.
Yeah. I mean, you can't expect to be like,
I think I literally thought that, because the Skyline Lounge, I went in thinking I was going to love it. And I think I legitimately thought like, oh, I'm just going to go in Skyline Lounge and just hang out all day. And so I was kind of shocked when I was like, what do you mean it doesn't open till 7 p.m.? Like, I wanted to go in there at lunchtime or, whatever. Yeah. So that was a little bit surprising. So definitely kind of had to manage my expectations there. But I was hoping that would be helpful for someone else though. Because if you don't know, it's helpful to know that the lounges aren't just open all day, every day, and sort of free and available to just hang out in. There are either things happening or they're not open at all. So something good to know. So I think overall, really obviously enjoyed it and loved having the adult-only spaces. It certainly is a huge upgrade from the lack of adult-only spaces in the parks. So absolutely loved having that.
So now the big question, is Disney Cruise Line good for adults without children?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, 100%. If you even barely like anything to do with Disney, the movies, the characters, the parks.
Yeah, just the atmosphere, the theming, the Disney bubble, the smell.
There's something about, being in a cruise where everything surrounded you is just the Disney magic.
Yeah. Literally every element, every piece.
Not the magic, the actual cruise ship, but like the Disney magic that comes along with Disney.
Yes.
It's enjoyable. It's fun. It's
it was fantastic. And I think what's so great is that there were tons of things for families to do. There were tons of things for only kids to do. There were tons of things for only adults to do. And that, I think, made it really nice. It was like kind of a variety. And we even participated in some of the events that were really family centered, like the pirate show that we did that was like the family pirate game and the family karaoke, and it was fun just to even like spectate and that kind of stuff. So I mean, absolutely, adults without kids, Disney Cruise Line was amazing. I had a wonderful time. So we'd love to hear from you. Are you an adult without kids who's also cruised Disney? If so, what was your kind of favorite thing? What did you think about the adult only experiences? Was I being completely unrealistic? Probably, but we'd love to hear from you, hear about your experiences on Disney, or even are you an adult who maybe, has kids that absolutely loved the kids club and you really enjoyed getting to take advantage of those adult only spaces while your kids were enjoying themselves, in the Oceaneer Club or whatever. We'd love to hear about it.
Or have you been on other cruise lines? Does the Disney cruise compare to other cruise lines in their adult only areas?
Yeah, we have considered looking at cruises on other cruise lines, so I would be curious to kind of know how they compare. Thank you for watching. We really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. We do hope this was helpful for you if you are someone who's about to go on a cruise. Hopefully this content helped you kind of prepare and get ready for the cruise and get excited.
Yeah, and if you liked this video, make sure to smash that like button. Subscribe if you want to see more of our content and follow along. You can always hit that notification bell to get notified when we release new content.
Yeah.
And we are Chris and Whitney from the Windy City. We're sharing our lives here on YouTube.
Yep. Yeah, we want to share a lot of our just life living downtown, but we'll also be sharing our travels, like our Disney travels, which we will be doing on a regular basis, as well as travel elsewhere, as other adventures and all kinds of things.
Hopefully next time we get to go to the parks.
I think that's it. So thank you again so much for watching, and be sure to like this video and subscribe.
We'll see you next time.